This is a free podcast from the BBC. For more information, you can go to our website, bbc.co.uk/Radio 2.
Your TOGs like sunflowers greet the day. I can take a lot of this. And turn to face the light. And then they beam as if to say, he's back. Everything's all right. They greet this long-awaited day with small, excited shrieks. A fortnight's all you've been away, but it felt just like 2 weeks. Thank you, Sally. Sally forth. That's what we're going to do. And tell me this and tell me no more. Did you miss me? I thought not. According to the BBC website this morning, it's still Sunday. Yes, the BBC website is far famed for not keeping up. And Allard is in full flow with his Good Morning Sunday. I see. So I'm going back to bed, says Tansy, and it won't be listening to you, as obviously you won't be in either. Kind of the BBC to extend the weekend. And they can't be up. And, people aren't up at all hours to be changing the website. It's 9 to 5 job. It's a bit like the people who work the matrices on the motorways. You can't be expecting them to change the matrices after 6 o'clock when everybody's gone home. And Rob Sinfield of Nailsworth. So the festive season is upon us again. Rob, for heaven's sake, I don't want anybody mentioning Christmas until we actually get to Christmas, okay? The return of Strictly Come EastEnders, of course, here to keep us mildly diverted until Christmas, when Rachel Stevens, with a face like a bag full of spanners, honestly, could a girl be more plain, and a dead cert for the win, gets her hands on the glitter ball. Mind you, I'm already fed up with her dance partner, says Rob Sinfield, who takes these things a bit seriously, like a lot of people, particularly in my house, who is plainly struggling to keep his hands off her. We haven't got anywhere near so much as a tango yet. The lucky swine. I have a question, though. Has anybody ever seen John Sargent? Well, no, this is the old question. Anybody ever seen John Sargent and Joe Brand in the same room? As it's my BBC, says Paddy, Life President, Dormobile Owners and Enthusiasts Club, I write to complain in the strongest possible terms. Let's hope the trustees are listening. About the deception wrought by yourselves relating to the latest Sunday night offering, which thus far has depicted a young girl doing lots of sighing and wistful gazing into the middle distance prior to being deflowered by the local bounder. But so far, not one sight of a single Bedford-based mobile home, as promised by the title, Tess of the Dormobiles. The evening was absolutely fantastic. Proms in the park. Yes, that was in the Guandam days, a couple of weeks ago. 38,000 people turned up. Beautiful evening, which I laid on specially for you, and a wonderful, wonderful atmosphere. It was really terrific and good to see so many people out there having such a good time. Catering was spot on, loads of loos, always very vital when there are TOGs about. And Jill Pope, Sue Perkins excelled, as she did, and well done to her for winning Maestro. She's a very, very good person. And all the others taking part were marvellous. Even you, Tell. Really, Jill? Well, don't kill yourself. Only one thing marred the event. On the website, it specifically said, don't bring chairs unless you're disabled, so that you do not block the view of others. So hubby, for whom the ticket was for his 60th birthday, very nice gift too, Jill, and I, we left our chairs at home, and lo and behold, in the queue, there were people with chairs. And not just disabled people. And to add insult to injury, this is where the story really starts. When we got inside the park, guess what was on sale? Chairs. At an exorbitant price. Exorbitant. Tell the BBC to make its mind up a bit. Well, yes, I think that is a little bit, what we call in the BBC, a breakdown in communication, because we're not awfully good at communicating in the BBC. Not amongst ourselves, anyway. So, next year, can we get the chair thing right? If we're spared. And Len Horridge says, Yo, Len. Well, now you're back after recording your Christmas show. How long will you be here? Until October, I hear. Don't put yourself out, will you? Those tiles must be the best grouted in the world. You're a begrudger, Len. So pish tush and Yabu sucks to you. And it's good to know the BBC's Jan are being prudent with the licence fee payers' money. Yes, indeed, good husbandry. We're squirreling it away. I don't know for why. Probably for that series Hole in the Wall. Anybody seen that? So we've had the glitz and glitter of Strictly Come Dancing, and now we've got Darren Goff and Andy Peters, the hairy bikers, and all in silver lycra. And as Jan says, Chris Hoy, they were not. What? Thank goodness you're back. Oh, don't be shy. As I say, the country has slipped into what Sean O'Casey called a state of chassis. Well, I've been away. I'm going to have to claw back, aren't I? One thing after another during our absence. Our Scottish pound note is not worth the paper it's printed on. The weather's been terrible. And worst of all, Ross County haven't won a game while you've been away. Well, you see, without me there on the sidelines, threatening to come off the bench. Polly Harris from York, you disappear when we need your urbane charm and common sense. Banks going belly up, recession, inflation, everything we eat is bad for us. And to cap it all, the husband has lost his favourite pair of gardening gloves. We'll starve next year. No more homegrown veggies. This is serious. I could have done with you to put a positive spin on all this. Yes, everything's about spin, isn't it, Polly? Well, look, don't worry. As soon as we get all those windmills up along the coast, we'll slip into darkness, and we won't be able to read the bad news. What we don't know can't hurt us. Can I just say, of course you can, Leon Solent, and just say how much I enjoyed Sky Sports' coverage of the Ryder Cup adverts. Non-stop insurance, banking, men's toiletries, and motor cars. A cornucopia of available products for our delectation and delight. Next time, though, could we have a few less visits to the golf? I found it broke the continuity of the adverts. Oh, for Peter Alice. Well, look, let me tell you something. I've got a picture here that really I'm going to draw down to the attention of young Alice. He may well be listening as he feeds the chickens this morning, but there's a picture here of... where was this taken? Woburn, I think. Maybe not. Well, a picture taken, and it's a parking place. And it says, yes, it is Woburn. Ian Poulter, it says, touring professional. His particular and specific car parking place. And in the place is a car with the registration Pot 3. So it's quite obvious that Alice has very little regard for these young whippersnappers who are coming up and taking over the golf links, as it were. Well done to Ian Poulter. He absolutely played a blinder. Others didn't. It has to be true. Some of the more established European stars failed to trouble the starter, not to mind the judge. And well done, Team USA, says old Tam Morris here, for winning the Ryder Cup over the weekend. Though I must say I'm surprised they actually did so, with Nick Faldo's excellent captaincy of the European side. Right from the get-go. During the opening ceremony speeches, slumped nonchalantly over the mic as he introduced Team Europe, I said to myself, there's an asset for the team if ever there was one. It's like having an extra man on your side. I bet old Zinger was pleased to have such an advantage. Still, not to worry. Only again.
You're listening to the Wake Up to Wogan podcast from BBC Radio 2.
Hello from all of us here at Radio 2. While you've been away, dear Tell, the economy has faltered. And markets had a dizzy spell, and the weather patterns altered. And now you're back on air again with your usual homely chat. Will the markets reach a level plane and the weather highs fall flat? Yeah, I hardly leave the place for 10 seconds and the world implodes. Honestly, I'm going to have to take you all in hand and just leave it to me, will you? Leave it to me, and instead of giving all those trillions of dollars, I'll look after you. Gus Tardwood of Flitwick in Bedfordshire says, John Sargent has indeed never been seen in the same room as Joe Brand. Yes, that's... one of the byproducts of Strictly Come Dancing is the references to John Sargent and Joe Grant. But I'd bet good money, says Gus Tardwood, that nobody has ever been in the same room with Lord Roy Hattersley and Clarissa Dixon Wright. Come to think of it, legend has it that your good self and George Clooney have never been seen in the same room. Oh, for goodness sake, not for me to say. But I will. Ken... Old stock, Ken. Could you tell me if there is an old TOGs club? Terry's old geezers is self-explanatory, isn't it? No, you want to call it an old TOGs club. Only while stagnating at home. Sounds worse now that I've seen it written down. I hope not too many of you are stagnating as we speak. I wondered if there's a meaning to life other than picking up the pension each week. And it dawned on me, why shouldn't I form an old TOGs club? Because we've got one, Ken. OK? The idea would be for members to entertain themselves. There's not enough of that, is there? There's not enough. You know, we entertained ourselves in my day. Yeah, round the old Joanna. Oh, lovely. And there are plenty of halls that could be utilised. Surely, even after receiving our old age pension, there are those amongst us who have the talents to be enjoyed by others. No, I think is the answer to that, Ken. No. Keep yourself to yourself. A monthly subscription of a couple of quid would secure membership, and this would pay for the cost of the hall, and any over at the end of the year could provide a coach trip. What do you think? I think this is a belter of an idea. Why hasn't somebody thought of that? When you and old Barrowlands Boyd left us a few weeks ago, we never really leave you, Donegal. We're always here, like two orbs. No, Lenman's orbs. We weren't too sure if we'd ever meet again. Why was that done? A group of scientists... yes, that's why I left. A group of scientists were about to undergo some experiments deep under a Swiss Alp, and another group of scientists were trying to stop them. And the second group of experts were claiming we'd all disappear into a black hole if the first group weren't stopped. Well, 2 weeks later, we're all still here. Yeah, only because it's been postponed. You don't suppose the second group are the same ones that are advising the government and Al Gore on climate change, do you? How appropriate to play Stuck in the Middle with you, says David, on the day Gordon Brown is to make his big speech. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. And that's only the Miliband brothers. I recently stumbled across a show called Hole in the Wall. I stumbled across that myself, Bernie. Bernie Sensation. I wasn't initially sure what was going on. Well, I wasn't at any stage sure what was going on. But apparently it involved a group of minor celebrities. What a misused and abused word celebrity is. All dressed to be shot out of a cannon, presumably at a wall. I didn't actually see any of them shot out of the cannon, but I'll be tuning again next week. Can I suggest they put an extra charge of powder under Anton de Beck? Are we allowed to suggest other celebrities to be shot out of a cannon? I'm compiling my own list. Listen, that's too easy, Bernie. We can all do that. Wilting, dear old Wilting Baz, who does so much for children in need. He's a great man. The leaves are turning golden brown, the days grow shorter still. The morning mist shall chill the air, the earth lies damp and still. No more the rising of the lark, no more the songbirds trill. Anyway, that's enough of that. It's making me feel ill. And the other day, a friend of mine was having his morning shave, these ablutions, when suddenly, rudely disturbed by a very loud explosion from outside the house, he threw on his clothes and rushed into the street. An electricity substation had blown up, and was by then being surrounded by worried neighbours. Being a responsible sort of chap, he thought someone should know, so he rang the local police. After giving his height, weight, favourite colour and inside leg measurement, he was asked, "In your opinion, is this an incident which the police need to attend?" And meanwhile, another friend's 7-year-old son was being escorted home by the local bobby for playing in the street with a yellow plastic gun. "So," said John Smith, "we won the Ryder Cup. Great Britain and Ireland defeated the United States by 3 points. That's if you discount all the matches involving a European. So, Bo Diddley and Al, your boys, took a hell of a beating, after all. That is, with this Ryder to the Ryder Cup. Can we go back to the good old days without the Europeans ruining it for us?" Oh, sorry, in the past, we didn't manage to win it without them, did we? Yes, John, these things have to be taken into account. Poor Nick Faldo. He's taken dog's abuse. Dog's abuse. And last weekend, he who must be reminded often, says Carrie our pigeon, decided he'd spruce up our dining room and disappeared to the DIY shop to buy some paint. Oh, my God. On his return, he set about transforming our previously beige dining room walls, beige, so the new black, into a more modern, funky look. I dared to ask what colour he had decided on. "Egyptian cotton," he said. "It will be light and fresh." "So," I said, "a bit like beige, then?" "Of course not," he replied huffily and flounced off in true artistic fashion. Several hours later, he asked me to view his masterpiece and the remodelled room. Did you know that another name for Egyptian cotton is Potemkin grey? After another 2 coats of white emulsion and another trip to the DIY store together, our walls are now ivory cream. That's a very, very, very light beige. So, you're back. You've noticed. It's you and Cry. And alive. Well, nearly. Have you any idea how much of your listeners worried when your disappearance 2 weeks ago coincided with the news item that an Edwardian pier had been destroyed by fire? We've lost a couple of piers, haven't we, by fire? Phew, what a relief. But remember, once you're sown in for the winter, keep hosing down that lagging and avoid beans. We've already lost too many of your generation to spontaneous combustion. A well-known chocolate manufacturer reminded me yesterday, says Francis Klonowski, a great man who does a great deal of work for hospital radio, that October the 5th is Grandparents' Day. Hurrah! With all grandparents long departed, and the daughter not having granted me this status, the day has little interest for me. Well, Francis, it's good of you to remind the rest of us who are suffering. But what do they suggest? What? The chocolate manufacturer as an ideal present for Grandparents' Day? A box of their special toffees. Would I be right in thinking, says Francis, that the marketing department has an average age of 23? Clearly too young to realise that those of us who reached potential grandparenting age spend much of our time, or our eating time anyway, trying to ensure that all the fillings and the crowns acquired at great cost over the years remain firmly where the dentist put them. And certain things like toffees, even top of the range, are determined to ensure they don't. Soft centres, please, my dears. Spare a thought for those of us who have waved a tearful goodbye this weekend to our TIGs, the young geezers, as they packed their bags and left home for university. The varsity life. Uni. Ahead, a life of night parties, late lie-ins, and an excessive drink, boyfriends, and antisocial behaviour by the bucketful. And then, says Janet that Cardigan of Racy Cheltenham, I wonder what the young geezers will get up to. Look, for all those parents who took their offspring to university and shed a little tear, I'm sure, for the first time of the weekend and wondering how they're getting on. Oh, the worry. Sue, in Big Christmas, says, don't bother. They're not missing you. And this is the sort of correspondence you can expect over the next few months. Dear Mum, well, I'm here and I've done it. I've finally flown the nest. I thought I'd drop you a line to say that I'm fine. And yes, Mum, I'm wearing a vest. Dear Mum, I've moved into a shared house with Pizza Face, Ratso and Puss. The fridge is quite lurky, and the loo doesn't worky, but then, neither do any of us. Dear Mum, well, I'm bored and fed up. My course is a load of old tosh, but seeing as I'm here for another 3 years, do you think you could lend me some dosh? Alan Jones, Philistine. Look, Phil, there's no point complaining about Alan Jones to me. The man's gone. Well, he's been gone for years. Just played a dedication for someone celebrating their 32nd wedding anniversary. Now, I know paper is the gift for the first anniversary. What do you send to someone who's been wed for less than a minute? No, do I have to explain? Look, it's not a 32nd wedding anniversary. It's a 32nd. No, it's no use. My captain, yes, Tim Gustard, how is it? How's the old painting going? You may remember my curmudgeonly condemnation of Mamma Mia. I don't, however, feel the same about ABBA. When you were extolling their excellence, I was reminded of an interview with Stephen Fry, when asked which his favourite group was, he replied ABBA, and said, because they were better than they needed to be. And that's typically Stephen and clever. And from your random utterings about the Mamma Mia experience, I take it you've endured the experience. No, I haven't put myself through it, because I've anticipated, you see. Like a good wing forward. I've anticipated what I think it might be like at Mamma Mia, with people dancing in the aisles and jumping up and down and you being unable to see what's going on the screen. I was fortunate to see it last week, and to my surprise, was not the lone male in the audience. I was accompanied by 2 10-year-old boys with serious bladder control, several middle-aged men sitting very low in their seats, and a handful of flamboyantly dressed, mustachioed men. And I thought it was just me, says Pat Stimson. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. What'd it be like investing in a music hall act? I'd like a mortgage from Wilson, Keppel and Betty, please. I see that chap David Blaine's been at it again, says Rufus. doing another of his totally pointless stunts just for the publicity. He's what my mother-in-law, with a gift from understatement, would have called a bit of a notice box. That is very true. And as the new head of fashion for the BBC... Oh, they haven't opened another office, have they? It's Don Keyjacket. I must congratulate your dress sense this morning. Kind of you, Don. One likes to be smart. As you know, it's been my goal to smarten up the jocks with crisp shirts and ties. I've been sending memos about the wearing of brown ties on air for weeks now, with little success. And before today, the closest we came to it was Jonathan Ross wearing a pink one around his waist, and Chris Evans draped in a cerise muffler. Well done, lad. You're setting a new standard for everyone at Broadcasting House. Good luck with the job interview. I always dress like this. I was watching the Strictly Come Dancing Take Two show last night and noticed that the cuts within the BBC have really started to bite. Can you ask your other listener if he's noticed that the desk the judges sit at every week in the show was only made for 3 to sit at? Poor old Bruno Botticello looks like the poor relation, with half of him hanging off the end of the stage. What's next? If you want an old deck chair for your studio, Trev, there's one in my shed you can borrow. I wonder if you can do me a favour. It's Tarquin Bolsover Phipps, a theatrical impresario. Could you do me a favour? I'd like... You see the thing yesterday, where the government is going to give away tickets to under-26s for the theatre. I'd like you to give away tickets to my new play, in keeping with the government initiative. Bah! I Can't Take It Anymore is a sort of latter-day dreary kitchen sink drama, set in the north, and deals with one man's struggle to better himself against the odds. Sounds good, Tarquin. We're playing to empty houses nightly at a fringe theatre in Battersea, and think that making attendance compulsory for the under-26s is just the thing to see us transfer to the West End. Break a leg, love. I just heard a comment about... your comment about flamboyantly dressed, mustachioed men at Mamma Mia. No, I only read the letters. Is this discrimination? Is this another BBC attempt to marginalise members of society? To demonise them? Why should members of the Jimmy Edwards fan club not go to see Mamma Mia?
You're listening to the Wake Up to Wogan podcast from BBC Radio 2.
Behind every successful man is a woman with nothing to wear. Having just watched, and may I say quite enjoyed, the recent ITV miniseries, Lost in Austin. Well, I'm sorry I missed that, I begin to wonder, any future in applying the concept to other famous writers? Well, we'll see. Eric Clapton goes to the Gents in a well-known blues club in London and finds himself teaching the guitar in Do the Boys Hall, picking in Dickens. Audley Harrison gets knocked out in his latest heavyweight bout and comes to in the middle of a bare-knuckle fight at Barchester Towers, the Wallop and Trollop. Peter Sellers follows a murderer into the Louvre and emerges in 18th century Paris, Clouseau and Rousseau. And while reading the traffic news, Lynn Bowles mysteriously disappears, only to turn up with a bucket behind a horse and cart in Edinburgh. The Totty from Splotty in Scott. Dave Miller, talking of doubles. Who was talking of doubles? Nobody was talking of doubles. It's only you, Dave. You're imagining that people are saying things that are actually going round in your own head. Reminded me, that happens to a lot of listeners. It reminded me of last year when I spent a day in hospital. What, you just fancied a rest, was it, Dave? Waking at the usual early hour for the bed bath. They woke you to give you your sleeping tablet, do they? I said to the elderly chap next to me, what, you've got a fella in bed with you? Oh, and the bed next to you, huh? Well, at least, being in here, I can listen to Wogan without interruptions. And his reply was, you'll be lucky. He's been dead for 18 months. Oh, what it is to be loved. So, says Jan, who keeps an eye on things for me, so if and when your listening figures fall to an all-time low... It can't be long now. Will the present Lady Wogan rise from her bed at 5 o'clock and do a Sarah Brown? Well, yeah, Ken Bruce was talking about that yesterday. He was expecting his wife to come in and extol his virtues. Yeah. Will Lady Wogan say you're a Tyler and Grouter extraordinaire, an ace with the remote control, an exponent of all games to be played with the grandchildren, or will she just stay in bed and let you get on with being a veteran broadcaster and an old lickspittle? You got it. Trust you're all shipshape and Bristol fashion. James Burton Stewart, thanks. Kind of you to worry in Mortimer Common. Having thoroughly enjoyed last night's instalment of The Restaurant which saw Raymond Blanc not only discussing the money, but his mother, Mama Blanc. I was riveted by the latest trailer for Radio 2. Haven't seen it yet. Yeah. Anybody we know on it? The Ginger Whinger. Good old Christy. And Wassy. And an attractive lady that James says I've no recollection of ever having seen previously. Could I suggest, in the interest of health and safety, it might be prudent to have your studio chair checked after the punishment meted upon it by Christie's bopping? I can't wait to see that. I expect people like myself and Ken Bruce and Steve Rice were all a bit old for the promos, eh? I saw The Restaurant. Did you see The Restaurant last night on BBC Two with Raymond Blanc? Oui. Do you know, Raymond Blanc's English has got worse over the years. I wouldn't mind only. He's from Tipperary, you know. Yeah, Ray White. Raymond offered little piggies for his chefs to savour, so that they could cook up all the meat and then vie for his favour. Some told little porkies on what was on the plate, some failed to please, some dished up rather late. Lots of them lost a plot, and others got confused. I felt sorry for the punters. They looked just plain bemused. So another week of cringing failure, and Raymond's looking triste. Why, oh why, did the BBC give me contestants such as this? Well, Luke North said last night I watched an item on my local ITV news programme. Treasure those, because we may not be seeing too many more of them. Well, according to Ofcom, or is it Offset? Anyway, I feel it needs broader exposure, this item on my local ITV news programme. Believe it or not, research is showing that sweeties and lollipops are chock full of chemicals, additives and colours that are having a bad effect on the behaviour, general well-being and teeth of our little darlings. What next, says Luke North. They'll be telling me that smoking 40 tabs a day, rather than making me attractive to women, might be having a bad effect on my health. Thank goodness for boffins and incisive reporting on local TV. At least we in the south of the country have been given vital information that may well not be finding its way elsewhere in the land. Yes, one has to keep a weather eye open and also not stuff oneself with sweets. These additives, they've had a bad effect on Barrowlands Boyd. He's never been the same since he sucked a lollipop. And Ivor Manifesto says, my daughter wants me to buy her a laptop for her birthday. My wife, who doesn't work, wants more housekeeping, and she thinks I should get a better job. I'm therefore going to stand as MP for Stockton-on-Tees and get a job on the cabinet so I can spend less time with my family.
You're listening to the Wake Up to Wogan podcast from BBC Radio 2.
And a very good morning, Chuck. We've been having a great time here. We're up to our armpits in sausages and hamburgers and all sorts of good food. Yorkshire, home of good food. Nice to see you've travelled up north today, says Ned Bod of Cheshire. Even though you're on the wrong side of the Pennines. What Pennines? Did you know that Radio Leeds broadcasts from the same transmitter as Radio Manchester, and that although this transmitter, Home Moss, is located in West Yorkshire, the base of one of the cables supporting it is in Derbyshire? You do need to get out a bit more, Ned Bod. And Radio 2 also comes from Home Moss on 89.3 MHZ FM stereo. Well, you know, that's kind of heartening, isn't it, Barrowlands? I mean, these things are important, and you knew all that.
I did know it.
Yes, you did.
But you know, talking about food and sausages, one thing we haven't had.
What's that?
A Yorkshire pudding.
Now listen, didn't we have a sticky toffee pudding from the lakes yesterday?
Yeah, but not from Yorkshire.
Sometimes I just wonder if you're not a bit spoiled.
Cookie.
I've never been a herb tea and muesli girl, and just as you mentioned your burger, I was about to take the first bite of leftover cold roasted vegetables between two thick slices of toast, says Brighton Bell. I then absent-mindedly ate the pork crackling, which I was keeping for the dog. Himself, well, he just has tea. Why wouldn't he? What ho, me old flower? It's Chuffer Dandridge. Now, the old Shakespearean actor-manager resting at the moment, of course, in awaiting that white fiver that will never come from Larry. Did I hear you say that you and Barrowlands had to run Leeds up to Yorkshire last night to do today's show? I thought the BBC had gone wireless years ago. I could be wrong. You probably did it on bikes. Well, it worked. Reception's much clearer. You might as well stay there. If you see Bruno Tognoli, real name Bill Tufnell, up there, Petty whippet for me, will you? I'll not touch that man's whippet. Oh, I wish I wasn't ugly, with a face that's best forgot. I'd dress up very snappy and woo the lass from Splot. Alas, I have a face just like a bag of spanners, and every dating club I join, they look at me and ban us. But Lynn could be my beauty. I'd wear a bag upon my head, and then this ugly duckling might become a swan instead. You've kissed a few frogs in your time, haven't you?
You're going to kiss a lot of frogs.
And under summer's sun, as across her face it flits, and you see, in the end, it's perfectly nice, almost a fairy tale, and then ugly Horace has to go and ruin it. And look, Sir Terry of Pembroke, Tenby, St David's and Preseli Blue Stones, that'll be me.
They stole all your castles, didn't they?
They stole my castles, and several of my ancestors are buried up to their armpits in sand somewhere in Wales. I was about to dash off a series of lines involving the Titian, Taff, Vale, Touting, Traffic, Totty, Terror, Tiger Bay, and some dockers, but soon realised this would lead only one way, the slippery slope of Smot and Innuendo.
Lucky there's none of that here.
Thank goodness that we have standards, and that we never deign to lower ourselves to the lowest common denominator. Listen, people talk about me, behind me back. Yeah, that Evans fellow, do you know him at all?
No.
He should be from Wales.
Well, really?
Evans the Chris.
He probably is.
He was talking about you. He said just before they tucked into some pig's cheeks, he's a resident chef on his programme. Yeah. Well, we might as well have, mightn't we? Tell me this, have you ever tried a Yorkshire pork and black pudding sausage?
I'm hoping that you'll bring me one.
Oh, no, they don't travel.
Because they get eaten.
Yes, exactly. He said you like nothing better. This is this young Evans the talk. He said nothing better than being greeted and spoken to by your public as you walk up and down the street. The more times you're stopped, he says, the happier you are. Now, I couldn't tell if he was being honest or ironic, so we'll have a survey. Will you walk down Leeds High Street so we can see if you get grumpy or elevated? Listen, I must have greeted and had my photograph taken with about 25,000 people last night.
I'd like to say none of them wanted to talk to you, but you just forced yourself on them, didn't you?
I do, but it's a strange thing with me, forcing myself upon young women. And I can't see a thing this morning. I'm still blinded by the flashes.
The retina's burned out.
Yeah. Have you been to Leeds at all? Been to Yorkshire?
I haven't. I hear it's lovely.
Oh.
The sausages, apparently.
Yes.
Worth visiting.
God's own sausages, it's called. Right, it's the old hamburger, Very, very tasty at this hour of the morning.
It's all very well for you.
Ah, yes, it is, and rightly so.
We're sitting here, Lynn and I are sitting here listening to you and Boydie scoffing.
That's all we can hear. It's like locusts.
Have you ever tried a pork and black pudding sausage?
No, and I don't think today's going to be the day.
No.
We're sitting here with our noses pressed to the glass, like starving waifs.
Would that we could rush it to you. Unfortunately, it's a long way to Tipperary. Dear Lynn, you remember during your time at uni, you were recruited into the Cardiff Revolutionary Army of the People as a sleeper.
Yeah, yes, that's right.
As the old fool is stuck in Leeds, you say, aha!
Oh, no.
The time has come to strike. Your instructions are as follows. Get your toolbox out. Change the locks on the studio doors. Start broadcasting the Lynn Bold Show. So, infamy. Infamy. Look, we've been watching Mr. November on the webcam. He's asleep at the microphone. This is from the Mother Superior of the Sisters of Perpetual PMT. Sister Dipsomania has thrown gin at the screen, but to no avail.
Just throw it a bit harder.
Honestly, don't be putting on the poor mouth here. Just because myself and Barrowlands are putting ourselves outside the finest hamburgers and sausages and baps and grand, and even chocolate, you mustn't be jealous or in any way envious.
Why not?
Well, because we'll be bringing you some crumbs from the great man's table on Monday. Don't worry. Oh, you won't be here, Charles. Oh, well.
Lynn, there's a big button here marked Leeds, on, off.
Don't let it go to your head, Charles.
What do you think?
Off.
Nearly the end of the week, Terry. At long last. Oh, don't. It's been painful, Hugh. I see Chuck Nove has been at bus driver school. His error was in letting a passenger on in the first place. You need to pull out slowly to keep the hope alive. They'll catch the bus and keep running for it, and then slam the door in their face.
Yeah, deft timing is called for. Yeah.
Bonus points for blocking both lanes, too, on the pull-out.
Yeah.
If you see a learner driver, you want to get it up to around 60, then right behind them, go for the floorboards and watch the learner spiral out of control. Remember, brake, accelerate, brake, accelerate, brake, accelerate, and you'll have your passengers spinning like tops on the back of the bus.
This man knows too much.
He knows too much for his own... Lynn, what have you been saying?
Nothing.
Did you mention Margaretti during your travel?
Margaretting on the A12, Essex, lovely place.
Well, Warner, says Chief Inspector Barnacle, not to be sucked up by Goretti's con act. She purports to be a homeless waif and will try and tap you up for 5 shillings for a cup of tea. However, all the while she lives in the lap of luxury on the proceeds of an illegal gin palace. That and the activities of a young man named Gerald, whom she introduces to local society females. If Lynn knows of Goretti's exact whereabouts, get in touch with us down here at the station. It's hell, isn't it, really?
You have no idea.
Dear remote broadcaster, it's Buzzy Widgets, BBC Technical Killjoys, closely related to programme preventions officers, of which there is an entire floor full in the television centre. Dear remote broadcaster, it's come to our notice that you're not in the normal studio this month. There's nothing normal about my ordinary studio. And we understand you're beaming your rays to us from Leeds. Yes, they're coming through, I hope. In order to check they're of the required type as prescribed in BBC Health and Safety Remote Broadcasting Manual, we require you perform the following operation. Stand 3 feet from the microphone and sing a chorus of The Lily of Killarney. A pale moon was rising above the... How's that for you? One of our engineers will measure the amplitude of your rays and must warn you, if they contravene the guidelines, there'll be no alternative but to close down your transmission. Oh, great. With the credit crunch, I've been doing a bit of extra work and waiting at tables. I was Phil Monty. Oh, I saw you last night at Leeds. Last night, it was good to see you'd left the big smoke to have your tea with the good people of Asda, native children in need. Yeah, they were wonderful. You seem quite popular with the young ladies. It's a strange magic that I have. It's the same with children and animals. Only eclipsed, I was to say, by the svelte Barrowlands Boyd. When he was introduced to the room, the noise was deafening. In the flesh, he's reminiscent of Ian Cuthbertson in the iconic 70s series Budgie. Tall, dodgy, menacing Scot with a heart of gold. And anybody who recognises that description, please report to the police. Your English is excellent. Thank you, Tim. But you've already made 2 gaffes this morning. I suspect you make the same gaffes all the time. You don't want to listen too closely to this kind of rubbish. You use the reflexive pronoun myself instead of the subjective pronoun I. You used this Sunday instead of next Sunday. This can never refer to anything not here now. This coming Sunday is in error too, so it should be the coming Sunday, not this coming. And the only correct use of this referring to days is this Friday, that is today. One says this week, month, year, decade, century, millennium, for the current period. Well, Tim, thank God somebody like you is keeping an ear out for idiots like me. Just after you departed for your latest tile and grout fest, I stumbled across what I suppose can loosely be described as a talent show over on the commercial channel. Oh no, not the commercial channel, no. Whereas I'm sure your other listener never watches such drivel, one of the contestants must have been a TOG, an old boy in his 80s with aspirations to be... It's X Factor, isn't it, which is hysterical. Another Gene Kelly danced and sung his way through his routine I'm sorry, I missed this. While accompanying himself furiously on the spoons. God, my sister-in-law plays the spoons. Don't knock it. Turns out he was under the mistaken impression the auditions were for Britain's Got Talent. And not the X Factor.
Wake up to Wogan.